Greetings! Welcome to Terra Prime Live, our weekly show on all things sabering. Today we're going to be talking about the perfect hilt, the design and the mechanics and all of that that go into the actual thing that we hold on to with the lightsaber. And we'll be talking about what's good, what's bad, what's mediocre, what doesn't matter, all of that kind of thing here. So we have a couple special guests with us tonight. Well, one special guest, Kyle from CJS Props, CSJ. Kyle, can you hear us, Kyle? Maybe not. Okay, well, yes. Anyway, hopefully we'll get the audio going there, and we'll have some input there. We also have our Knight of the Galactic Fringe Praxum, Daniel Lane, also a sabersmith with your Tythos Ridge saber custom sabers, or is that right there, Dan?
I'm with Tythos Ridge Customs.
Can you guys hear me?
Also,
because right now I can't hear anybody.
Yes, we can hear you. Anyway, go ahead.
I do Tythos Ridge Customs, and then I'm also a saber tech with Saber Forge.
Very good. Okay, so, and then we've got our own Master Wheelos, Craig Page. How you doing, Craig?
Oh, sorry, I muted myself. I'm doing all right. I can't stay on for long, but I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Okay. Very good. Kyle, can you hear us yet? Perhaps not. Okay, just let us know when you get that done. Anyway, so let's just continue on with the program. So yes, one of the things that we find so wonderful about lightsabers and everything like that is the amount of variety there is in the hilts. You can change the balance, you can change the the feel, the diameter, depending on who you buy from or if you make it or anything like that. And we're going to go through some of the issues and some of the things that have come up in our practice and our experience with using these things. So we'll just kind of get into it here. I am coming, of course, from a martial arts kind of background, so there is the idea that I am looking for something when I'm looking for a weapons analog that's going to feel very much like a weapon, like something like this. This is a practice sword, a fetish word, and if we look at the hilt assembly here, we're going to see a couple of things. First of all, we notice that it is kind of wasted here in the middle. So we've got thinner points over here and then a larger point in here. And we also notice that it is not completely cylindrical. It's kind of flattened, right? That has something to do with everything. So we've got that going there. If we look at more of a dowel type of shape here, we can see it's still got that kind of flattened shape. And again, like I said, this has something to do with edge position. The reason we kind of want this here is because we need to have this positioned specifically so that we can make good cuts and that kind of thing. If we look at length, and I don't have a measuring tape on hand here, but we'll see the lengths and we'll compare the lengths here of the different handles like that. So this is long sword. These are two-handed weapons. Short-handed weapons or one-handed weapons are a bit shorter. And I do have one of those. So here's more of a one-handed weapon, but you can see there's still a little bit off to the side there. There are, of course, shorter handles that are literally one-handed, and they only come out here. So that's kind of like where I'm coming from. So as I'm coming to this particular hobby, I'm looking for things that are going to replicate that very, very well, or as close as I can get it. And of course, there's lots of different companies out there. There's lots of different configurations and systems and all that kind of thing. So we'll go over, just kind of a few of them. So I started with the Ultra Sabers, and I have a couple of Ultra Sabers here. These are the MHS hilt. This is an initiate, right? There's 2 choke points right here, which gives that there. It's a pretty good one-hander. It's still got enough room here to grab if you need to. This here is, I believe it's a standard issue, and we can see it there. The only real protrusion on it is this button right here. We'll talk about buttons in a moment. Like that. Both of these are MHS compatible, so they're about the diameter of the stuff from the custom saber shop and stuff that you can do to build your own. And they're generally very good. They're going to be a little bit thicker than most, I would say, real weapons, if you want to go into it. So they're going to be a little bit longer. Also, notice that they are completely cylindrical. So they're going to feel bigger in the hand just for that one dealie. And if we want to talk about edge position and kind of translating that, you're going to have little protrusions and stuff like that in most sabers, which are going to give you clues onto where your blade is and all of that kind of thing. That will probably be the most basic of them. Now, there are Ultra Sabers also has the V2s, the version 2s, which are thinner. I do not believe I have a V2 on hand. That was an Initiate V3, which has slightly larger diameter. So yes, so there's that. If we kind of go into more of the sabers things. The other types of sabers I tend to use are the Genesis custom sabers. This is the Ascend. And if you notice here, it's a little bit, you can't really see it there, but because of the choke and all of that, the diameter of the body is just a little bit thinner. Not necessarily here at the choke, and not in a whole large way, but this does seem slimmer in the hand. If you've seen the review on it, the one drawback I have to this particular design is the location of the switch, which can be easily turned on and off like that. If we go through here, this is my custom MHS saber, the Bride, which I use a lot. I like this length. And if we look at the length in relation to even a sword, it's going to be much, much longer. I really enjoy this hilt because of the length and because of the kind of girth around it and all of that. We have a saber forge hilt, which I will go into here in a little bit. The Gladius, actually constructed by Dan here, and the Genesis Custom Sabers Bad Axe curved hilt, which we should probably go into curved hilts as well. So that's kind of like what I'm working with, and I can give things on that. But as I'm looking at the things that I look for in the sabers that I use a lot are going to be as close as I can to an actual weapon. So as few doodads and things sticking out of it as possible, a good grip, a nice length, and a good diameter. So why don't we open it up to Craig? Craig, how about you? You have anything to add to that, or want to show off your thing?
Well, just talking about resumes, I'm coming from like the very beginning of like the burgeoning of the saber community. I mean, my first saber was a Ultra Sabers Dominix version 1. Back when it was black PVC pipe, there's no frills, no chills. It was a straight up black PVC pipe with just a single button, a rubber a rubber like stopper pommel, and just a little bit of etching on the PVC to give the impression of an emitter. So this was like, they weren't even using metal yet. It was unheard of at that point. Of course, it ran the risk of being in something. So I'm coming from like the old school, back, right up before Mad Light flashlights and little plastic tubes. But and since then I upgraded a bit to this piece from Custom Saber Shop, which I've had for about 5 years now. My God, have I actually been in this community that long? And this has been my workhorse on and off for, the entire time. And that's really what I look for in terms of my sabers, is that they have to work. They have to be functional. They have to do what they're tasked to do. For me, that means, it's not full. They don't have to be, they don't. I don't do full combat. I don't do sparring. What I do is stage combat, but it still has to be built to take a hit. It still has to be sturdy enough to work as if these things are going to be going into a fight, because that is effectively what we're doing, but it's not the goal. For me, I have two very large hands, and I prefer swords and weapons that allow me to use both hands and use my full body to go into the swing. So most of my sabers are going to be, at the very least, a hand and a half. This is a little bit more because I wanted to get something that was a cross between a katana hilt and a broadsword hilt. That was something that I purposely made the judgment for. Also because it's very easy to do. I don't have that much room, so I'm gonna easy level off here. So that way I could do very pronounced wrist and hand motions and arm motions. So that way hands are always connected. One is always helping steer the other, and just guiding in. And I'm with Chad when I don't like having doodads on my hilt. That's why Master Replicas is like one of those things where the Master Replica sabers are really great to hang on your wall and really great belt candy, but as in terms of like, sparring weapons, even if you have them modded to take a hit, are not that great to use, just because there's so much errata on it that you are either cutting your hands up, even if you're wearing gloves, or the switches are in the way of everything. The switches are not where they should be, so it's just one of those things. I'm kind of ranting at this point, so I'm going to leave it back up to the panel.
All right. Okay. Daniel, how about you? You want to weigh in on this particular issue, being a sabersmith and user of them?
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed, being a sabersmith as well as being a duelist, with these awesome training weapons that we have, is that saber combat and lightsaber making is kind of this neat blend of science, engineering, and art. And because the word art is in there, art, of course, is subjective. And because we're dealing with a martial art, our weapons are also specialized. So in addition to being something that we like to have aesthetically pleasing to look at, each hilt also can kind of serve a different purpose, kind of like different sword designs. For instance, whenever I am sparring with my Jade Fire, hilt from Saberforge, I notice that I move a little differently. I manipulate the blade a little differently than I do whenever I'm sparring with a different hilt. And it's because this hilt has a very slender center grip. It's got these fat T-grips up here with some greeblies right there in a box. So the natural place to grab it is right here on this grip. Now, whenever you have a standard length blade on it, that puts your balance point out a little past the blade, which actually makes the grip section the natural place to grab this. This was one of those saber designs that I didn't like until I actually played with one. And now this is actually one of my favorite hilts besides the Gladius. Even with the greeblies on there, which I generally don't like, even with the box on there, which I generally don't like, this hilt is actually quite comfortable to wield. And I notice I really like doing my spheres of protection, my moon guards. I love doing moon guards with these. This is one of my favorite hilts to do moon guards with. So specialization is one thing, and then aesthetic pleasingness is another thing, because yeah, essentially you can take an aluminum pipe with a 1-inch inner diameter and put a blade in it, an LED module, drill a hole for a switch, and put a battery pack in it, and you've got a lightsaber essentially. But when you can take something like the Gladius, which is a bare bones dueler, in my opinion, and in addition to being one of the more comfortable hilts that you can wield, it's also got a personality. It's also got an aesthetic pleasingness to it that also has some function to it. And that's why, to this day, I think you'll always hear me, if anybody's thinking about getting a lightsaber, I always throw my vote in with the Gladius. So a couple things to consider whenever you're going for hilt design is what do you like? What do you plan to do with this saber? And what is it that you're looking to get out of your experience?
Yeah, I think those are good rules of thumb, because there's a lot that you can do. You mentioned balance point, and we can go into that. That's one thing that you can do with lightsabers, is you can change the balance point of your weapon, which offers some challenges and of course some freedoms. So all that. All right. Kyle, have you gotten that speaker issue fixed yet?
Yeah, looks like I got it all taken care of here.
All right, all right. Why don't you tell us about your company and where you're coming from, and then I don't know, we're just kind of waxing poetic on what we're looking for in hilt and how to gauge what's good in a hilt and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, you know, I've always looked at, well, okay, first of all, I mean, I'm up in Canada. I'm about a couple hours southwest of Eric, actually. And I've been doing this about 3 years now, putting these things together. Kind of got pushed into it, actually. I found myself in a bind, needed a couple of sabers for my wedding. And with the help of a few guys that were willing to bail me out, I managed to put a couple together. And since then, I can't help myself. I just have to keep doing it. And you know, guys talk about perfect hilts, and especially with regards to dueling and things of that nature, one of the things I see most often is guys talking about control boxes and how they get in the way. You know, hard to find a good grip, hard to get comfortable with. No matter what you do, there's always sharp, pointy edges that you have to deal with. And that's why I've always felt that as cool as they look, the canon sabers, I find that so many times they just aren't practical as what I would consider to be if these were a real weapon, you know, in real use. I can't imagine any warrior purposely strapping a giant metal box to the side of a saber and saying, you know, this is going to be perfect for me to fight somebody with.
Yeah, oh no, totally, absolutely. I think Dan mentioned that. I don't have, I had a, I have one coming, but I don't have a canon saber on me. Maybe Dan has a prodigal son or a redeemer there. But you can see the boxes that we're talking about stick out a good, you know, inch and a half sometimes, and it does make it challenging to find a good grip on them. And we know that they originally came from flash bulbs of cameras, so we can't really expect them to be have been designed for what we do with them. But you know, they're out there, and places like Nocturne Armory, and there's a lot of places that will make extremely ornate sabers, which I mean, I'll go on record right now. I won't even. I can't even think about gripping those things. I don't know about that. What have you seen a lot of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, all the time, and Nocturne is a good example. You know, lots of really cool greeblies on the side of these sabers. They look really neat. You know, all kinds of extra screws and bunny ears and things like that added to them. And yes, they look really cool. They're great, but I wouldn't want to carry one around on my belt either. You know, I can imagine myself getting snagged on everything under the sun trying to do that, and it would just be very uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's the other thing is when you have it hanging from your belt, you don't realize that all those little sharp edges and all that kind of stuff will kind of rub against you. And like I remember wearing one of my sabers for the first time for a while and getting a bruise on my leg right where it was swinging. So, yeah, interesting thing. Let's move over to our apprentices here. Gary, how about you? What I know you've got a variety of hilts and stuff like that, and actually I know you have a couple of hilts which would be perfect for this particular discussion. What have you found in your exploration of these kinds of things?
Well, I mean, I'm coming from a background with sabering where it's everything that I know and can do is as a result of TPLA. So I mean, I had no previous background. The first saber that I got was an Ultra Sabers Dominic's V3. Now you can see on this I've got an Archon pommel on it because you were mentioning earlier on about changing the balance point, and I mean the original saber just came with a sort of flat kind of pommel which has no weight in it at all. And I found it very, very blade heavy. This is not the original blade either. This is a shorter blade because it came with a 36-inch blade, and it was balancing out, out in the middle of the blade here, and I found that really, really awkward. So I thought I've got to get some more weight in the back of this to try to, bring, because from a point of view of where this actually sits, it's got two choke points, and I find that if I'm using it one-handed, I tend to sort of hold it near the front choke point. I needed something to put a bit more weight. It's also a very, very long saber. It's like 12.5 inches or something, so which is great two-handed. It's probably, funny thing is that from an aesthetic point of view, when I first got it, I really didn't like it. I sort of looked at it and kind of went, yeah, it's a bit kind of pipe-like. But it's kind of grown on me I've had this over a year now, and it's kind of grown on me a bit, and it's just got a switch, nothing more on it, so it doesn't have anything really sticking out. So that's kind of what I still tend to go to with for two-handed stuff. I put a 32-inch blade in it because, to be honest, I've tended to find I'm not terribly tall anyway, and I have found sometimes swinging this around that I have a bit of an odd tendency to hit the ground, so the shorter blade kind of helps with that. So that was kind of where I started from, and then I did want something with more personality. I wanted something that looked nicer, to my sort of eyes. And the next one I got was this, which is a Saberforge Venom. Now, this does have a few kind of funky little bits on it. It's got some fantastic little claws on the front here, which are probably completely impractical when it comes to any kind of sparring, mainly because I don't want them snapping off. Again, the switch on this is recessed, so there's absolutely no issues with catching the switch at all. There are some sort of windows and stuff at the front, so what I tend to do is hold it behind the windows. Now, here's the funny thing. This is a little bit shorter. It's a heck of a lot lighter hilt. So, and I tend to find I use this one-handed. This is one of two sabers that I sort of use as my kind of go-to thing for Makashi, which is what I'm working on at the moment. It's also got the CoverTech knob on it as well, but again, where I hold it is completely out of the way. Even if I'm holding it two-handed, I don't tend to find that a problem. but I don't really tend to use this saber two-handed. This is also one of only two I've got that has sound in it, so it's kind of nice from that side of things as well. But this, for me, at the moment at least, is a little bit of a kind of a perfect mix of a saber that's got a lot of character to it, a lot of an identity to it. It's also very practical to use. It's got, again, I've got a 32 blade in it because I'm finding those are far more comfortable for me, and again, it puts the balance further up, which is, especially for one hand, I find that's very, very useful. So this is a bit of a perfect mix for me of all of those things. I can use it two-handed if I want. I can use it one-handed if I want. Plus, it looks fantastic hanging on my belt. Now, I'm also a member of the club that, you know, seems to be just about everybody, that has Gladius, which I love this thing. Again, it's a shortish hilt. I mean, it's a bit like Craig's saber, you know, hand and a half jobby. It's very, you know, you can get two hands on it, but there's not a whole lot of space in between. It's very, very light. It's quite short. Again, I've got a 32 blade on this. And, you know, I would definitely duel with this thing because I think, to be honest, it would just stand up to just about anything I did to it. So, but again, it's not got a lot of extraneous stuff sort of hanging around. The funny thing about the boxes, I mean, I've never owned a saber, I still don't at this point, that's got an activation box on it. But the funny thing I found is if you look at Obi-Wan Kenobi's and Luke Skywalker's Return of the Jedi sabers, the box is at the back, and they've got a grenade grip at the front. So if you're going to turn that thing on, you kind of need to use two hands anyway, because you can only really reach the box with your back hand. So once it's on, if you're holding it at the grip at the front, it's not in your way. And if you're holding it two-handed and the box is on the opposite side to where your hand is, it's not that much in your way, I wouldn't think. I mean, as I say, I don't have one. I'd be interested, anybody who does have one, kind of how that sort of theory works in practice. But this completely doesn't, and even the CoverTech clip is massively further down. It's like right at the very, very bottom here. Now, I do have a Scorpion as well, a saber, Ultra Saber Scorpion, which is massive. I'll just grab it. This thing is huge. And this, to me, is a perfect example of something that looks fabulous, but I wouldn't use it. Because, for one thing, it's actually two shrouds, it's actually two sabers, one inside another. There's an internal tube and an external tube, and it does tend to creak, which I really don't like. It's also, it's so heavy, it's ridiculous. So, I like it. It looks very, very cool. I really love claw sabers. I love claw sabers. But again, I don't think that's necessarily hugely practical for a lot of reasons. Weight being one of them, and the you know, the sort of the fact that you've got this kind of creaking from the two tubes is a little bit of a thing. Now, the last one I'm going to sort of go with, this is, you mentioned about version 2 Ultra Sabers. This is an Eon version 2, which I've modified a little bit. This actually belonged to my late father, and so I sort of got it after, you know, after he died. And the nice thing about this is it is really thin, because I have medium to small hands, and a lot of sabers I've found it's hard to get my hand around them. But with this thing, I find that very, very easy. So what I'm finding is for a lot of one-handed stuff, again, a lot of Makashi stuff, because it's so thin, and I can get sort of action with my hand here without having to let go too much, this really is useful for me. Again, it's completely minus any kind of carrying on the hilt, except for the button. That's literally the only bit sticking out. But once again, what I tend to do with it is have the button on the opposite side to where my palm is, so it doesn't get in my way. But it's very light, and it's really thin, and that's what I like about it. So I think for me, what I look for something that's comfortable. I look for something where the balance isn't way out in the blade, because, again, not coming from a weapons background, I'm not looking for it to be a total sort of equivalent of like a you know, a metal steel sword. I want something that just feels kind of nice, and I'm kind of getting an idea as I go along of what feels comfortable to me, what I find useful. I don't have a curved hilt yet, but I'm working on that because I'm really curious to see how that changes things, and I've already got some ideas about, you know, how that might actually change things in terms of, especially in terms of shim techniques where, you know, you're sort of stretching the wrist out. It strikes me with a curved hilt, you don't necessarily have to stretch it out quite so far. But again, that's an interesting thing. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm coming from with this.
Yeah, I think the issue with the activation boxes is, if I'm not mistaken, on the original sabers, that's the portion that slipped onto the camera, that like attached to the camera, so that when you click the shutter or whatever, the flash would go off. I think.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and here's the thing with the activation boxes. Even though they're down there, when you start manipulating a weapon, you if I'm going like this, if we look, there's a seam right here, okay? And as I'm kind of maneuvering this around, this seam changes sides. So I'm flipping the sword around as I'm using it, right? Every time you do that, and you have an activation box, especially down here, you end up kind of catching right here, and it kind of slides by and cuts you. Not really cuts you, but depending on how sharp that metal is, it can be very it can be very difficult. The curved blade issue, or the curved hilt issue here, I think we've shown things like this before. It seems to be mostly kind of like a dowel type of curve to the hilt, where the back pommel is coming out, and I have found that what this kind of does is it kind of limits it, and we'll go into the curved aspect of things. You know, curved hilt sabers are really sought after and everything, because I think there's a belief that because you're holding it in a more of a pistol grip or what have you, it's more biomechanically something or other. I've never found that to be the case, and I'm not quite sold on the curved hilts, although they look pretty neat. So I'll just kind of leave that there for us to kick around in a minute. Last but not least, Eric, how about you? Anything to add on this particular subject?
Yeah, I kind of like the movie stuff. For me, if it's going to be a lightsaber, I wouldn't mind it kind of having a Star Wars-esque feel, at least in some way. So, I don't know. What drew me in, my first saber ever, was the Ultra Sabers Bellicose. Still my main hilt to this day. I love this thing. It does have a brass button here. Greeblies were mentioned, but for me, I'm a computer geek too. It's kind of like the home row on the F key and the J key on your keyboard. They have bumps. That's my home row bump, if you will, when I'm holding the saber. I don't have a sword background, or any background for that matter, so to me, the idea of blade position makes sense with a sword, but it's unnecessary with a lightsaber, so I'm just concentrating on basics and not really having to worry about that, thank goodness. But so what I love on a lightsaber, pretty much anyone, is a shrouded emitter. I'm a sucker for shroud. Blade has to be green, and I'm also a sucker for the Archon pommel. Yeah, I like it so much I have two of them. And my Padawan saber is an Archon pommel, but it doesn't have any black on it.
Well, that's mine.
Hey, Padawan. So, let's see. The second saber I got was the Overlord, which is in repair. We sort of saw the Overlord with the Bride of Frankenstick there by Master Anonymous. My third saber, which kind of came with my fourth saber, I won a raffle with Ultra Sabers. These are all Ultra Sabers, by the way. This is my Archon with a few bonus prizes from TCSS, and yeah, this is starting to get a little bit fun here. I'm digging this one, but anyway, I digress. This one here is basically a grip tube. I've taken the cover tech off. Yeah, I definitely want to give this one a shot with some dueling, because I think I found a nice comfortable hilt there. Of course, I'll try my bellicose first, but yeah, I'm definitely going to give that one a shot. And what I won with that was the Ultra Saber's Guardian, which I've just modified the pommel because, well, just the choke for it's here, and it's a nice pommel and all, but it's as I've read on quite a few groups going around these days, it's kind of been overdone kind of thing. I kind of agree with that. It was on Obi-Wan Saber and on a few others. Yeah. Oh well, at least it's cool. But yeah, this one of the major issues I had with this this saber here was just because of its detail. It had many mill marks on it, and or many milled parts. And when I first got it, I was just swinging it around with one hand, and I stopped and looked at my hand, and it was covered in blood in the palm, and I had just light slashes up on my fingers, and it's like, ooh, what the blood all over the hilt, and I was like, okay. It turns out that a few of the milling marks were not softened, I guess, so they were basically razor sharp edges everywhere on the saber. What I did was it took me hours, but just slowly and meditatively, I just took the retention wrench on the metal against metal, and just softened the edge without leaving a mark. So I can grip this saber anywhere and not cut myself. That was another thing. The more detailed the saber, maybe the more likely it is you'll find something that might accidentally cut you. I don't know. If you're doing what TPLA does, you're wearing gloves anyway, so it's all good. But yeah, so that's my saber collection for now. Basically, yeah, I'm a sucker for a shroudy emitter, and yeah, like everybody else, I'm not really into the control boxes. On top of that, if I'm going to actually use the saber, I do take the cover tech off because it's, you know, it just feels much more comfortable that way. And yeah, like Gary, I'm all about comfort as well.
Yeah, good, thank you. So yeah, we mentioned a couple of things in here. One of them being balance point. I'll have to say this. I got to say that the Gladius here is definitely an ideal dueling saber because it doesn't have a whole lot of stuff on it. You can slide all up and down. It has the recess switches, even if you have sound, or if you don't have sound, you're going to have the recess switches. So you're not going to have to worry about turning it on and off and that kind of thing. It's got a it's very substantial, so it's actually heavier than most hilts. What that does is that adds a little bit of counterbalance to the blade. Now there is a lot of talk and argument about balance point and where balance point should be. Now on actual swords and most technique that you're going to use, the balance point is about, and this is all per personal taste usually, about 4 fingers up from your hand. So wherever you grip it, if you grip it here, you know, that would give you a realistic balance right about there. So for like right here, we're looking probably right about at the emitter right there. So grabbing it about the choke is good. Now I can obtain that balance by putting in a mid-grade blade, a 36-inch mid-grade blade. If I change that blade up to a 24-inch, whoops, we're going to see we have an entirely different balance, which is going to be closer into here. Now, people tend to like balance points that are right on their hand because they like it to like balance right on there so that when they spin it, it feels all very nice and all of that. And that's all great and everything like that. I will just say this, that most techniques used with a weapon, with a hilt-based weapon, assume that there's a balance point in front of the hand so that as you're moving kind of through it, you're using that balance point as ways to build momentum and stuff like that. So technique-wise, it's often good to have the balance point in front of your hand, not right on it. Just because of this. Now you can argue, well, it'd be more like a real lightsaber that way, but yeah, do whatever you want. There's lots of people who like the balance real close to their hand too. It's not that common in actual weapons. If I take this guy out, and we can see where the balance point is on that guy. That is about that 4 fingers aspect. Certain chopping weapons they're gonna have the balance point far out in front of it, so that it's gonna create a lot of power going down. That's not an issue here. With curved hilts, what will happen with the balance is that this acts as a ballast, right? But it doesn't act as a ballast in the way that a straight blade does, because this is curved down, so now it's kind of pulling backward a little bit on the hilt, right? So it's going to give you kind of a different feel. Most of the time, like in the real swords, while they would have a curved here like that, is to accommodate some aspect of their uniform or apparatus or what have you. So so that's that. So as I'm sitting here like this, most of the time I will use this hilt, even though it's pretty long. It's about as long as an ascend, a little bit shorter. But as you know, I'll put a very short blade in here, because what this will make it feel like is when I hold it kind of down here, it really does feel like a kind of a short saber, you know, a close-in weapon that can be used as a lot of you know, as like a sidearm or something like that. So that's very nice. This tends to get in the way a little bit. It doesn't lend itself great to a lot of two-handed stuff because it puts your hands out of alignment. So the curved hilt, I don't think really adds a whole lot to it. Longer hilts might add, and shorter hilts might add different dynamics to it. I haven't found anything that really makes the curved hilt ones. I know Ultra Sabers put out one which is sort of a curved one where it's kinked in the center, and I've never held one, but I can tell you, if our sword does that, we throw it away. So we're just gonna, you know, keep it at that. But again, the Gladius being the length that it is, being kind of devoid of all of that, you know, a very, very good dueler. As far as balance point goes and weight and heft, Dan, Kyle, do you guys have anything to input on that particular subject, since you guys build these, and what are you thinking about with balance point and all that?
Actually, I was just having that discussion with someone yesterday. Someone who's used to using steel instead of a saber, well, a lightsaber, correction, and trying to explain the balance point, because when you are swapping out blades for, you know, a show blade or a battle blade, obviously your balance is going to change quite a bit. And they're used to having the heavier weight on that blade. You don't really have it when you go down to something like a 1/8 show blade, where it's, you know, it's a light grade. It's not gonna, you know, even you go to, a lot of my blades are 7/8 inch. So I don't even have the full 1 inch to add that extra weight to it. So it really, I find it's a personal preference, like you said. Everybody handles something differently. But I try to tell my customer that based on what they're asking for, you know, to make sure that they're going to be happy with it at the end. Because if it is something they're going to want to use a heavy grade blade with, then obviously, yeah, you want to try and put a little bit more weight in different areas to try and accommodate that. Otherwise, they're going to feel like they're off balance all the time. Like I know when I use my Ascend, for instance, it's such a thin hilt, or a narrow hilt rather, and I find if I put the new SF blades in it, for instance, the V3s, great blades, but very heavy. And because I'm so used to having only a 7/8 show blade in that hilt, and the hilt itself doesn't weigh a whole lot, when I pop that blade in there, I feel like it's dragging my hilt down. I feel like it's pulling the blade towards the ground all the time. And yeah, I'm sure Dan's going to make a comment later and say I have weak wrists and I need to work out more. But really, it's just I'm not used to it. I don't get to go out and smack around the shiny sticks nearly as often as some of you guys do. So so when I do put in a blade like that, it really I notice it, definitely. Yeah.
The the heavy grade blades definitely make things feel more like a real thing. This is a heavy grade that I use on the Bride here a lot. But you were talking about show blades. This is, well, it's actually showing up pretty well on the camera here. But the heavy grade blades tend to be a little dimmer than the mid grades or the show blades. Whereas when you put it in, it's just they're really if you fight with them a lot, yeah, you can use the mid grades, but if you're doing that, you're probably going to go through a whole lot of tips and a whole lot of wrapping if you do that in inside, because those things will get dented and will completely poop on you if you continually bash them together like that. But yeah, so there's the heavy grade and the mid grade kind of thing, or the show blade. And if I show you the kind of difference in the diameters there, that's a pretty good example. So yeah, I'll definitely use these for demonstration, these for fighting, and yeah, so I can see that. I've always liked the fact that, because I have this practice sword, which cost me a pretty penny. I haven't quite even used it yet. I can't wait to, but it's wonderfully balanced. It's perfectly balanced. It's just an excellent weapon, and everything like that. It cost me forever, and I can't change it. This is it, right? This is the sword. So it's taken me how long to find a sword that has exactly the qualities that I want. I can create a saber that will have those qualities, based on that. Dan, you got anything to add to that?
Of course. Kyle, do some push-ups. 7/8 inch blades. I've played with 7/8 inch blades. They do make the sabers way lighter. I can get those things spinning pretty fast once I have a 7/8 inch blade on them because of how light they are. As far as light distribution, I'm definitely going to plug Saberforge shamelessly here real quick, because all the blades that we send out, are heavy grade. They're thick wall blades. But because Phil is a genius, we had our blades custom made to our specifications. These are the V3 Infinity Edge blades. They're halfway between a trans white and a clear blade. So it's the best of both worlds. You get the even light distribution that comes from a trans white blade, but you get the brightness that you get from an internally diffused clear blade. So what you get is this gorgeous blade that on camera it looks like I'm waving around an actual lightsaber. And when you're at a convention, when you're in the woods, when you're just playing around outside, if you're not in direct sunlight, you're going to get this effect right here. And in addition to being absolutely gorgeous, this is fully combat ready. I always throw a little bit of packing tape around the tips of my blades so they don't go flying if they pop off, because that is one thing that that we haven't ironed out, and that's community-wide, is blade tips fly off because we're moving these at high velocities, and the tip is a separate piece from the blade. So it's something that we're definitely tirelessly working on. But the V3 blades look gorgeous, and also play the part of a full combat ready blade. And Chad points out an interesting thing. These are bullet tips, which are not allowed in TPLA. So that's one thing to consider.
Yeah, the bullet tips. The reason we don't. Oops. Let me grab it here. Is we've got these blades have nice flex this way, so they don't do much. They have almost zero flex this way. So if you have enough of a tip on there, you can do some pretty heinous.
These can be sanded down. I mean, if you wanted to, these can be sanded down to be used within TPLA standards. I have one that I've shaved down for sparring. As far as balance goes, again, it's one of those things that is very personal preference. I know most people that have sword experience tend to like sabers with thick wall blades. That's been something that I've noticed, is that swordsmen are almost inherently comfortable with the thick wall blades, with the weight and the heft that comes along with it. People that are used to Hasbro lightsabers, that are used to thin wall blades, they tend to like the thin wall blades because they're lighter. And I hand people my sabers all the time. They're like, "Wow, this is heavier than I thought it would be." It's like, well, yeah, it's aircraft aluminum and thick chunks of plastic, balance point is definitely personal preference. It's one of those things that you're going to find what you like. It took me years to find the sabers that I've liked. One thing that I will say that and I'll go back to the Gladius because we all love it. Anyone I've recommended a Gladius to that has gotten it has loved it. And it might not be, it definitely won't be the last saber that they'll get, and they'll probably end up finding something that fits their personality and their style. But as a starter saber for doing just about anything, this is a super versatile grip. It fits one hand or two. The weight on the back of the saber makes it really good for flourishing. It feels really good in every aspect.
I'll say this too about the Saber Forge blades, and then I can like Kyle kind of jump in here too. He probably has more experience in this. But one thing I've been impressed about is they're one piece. Okay, they don't screw up. The emitter does not screw off. The pommel doesn't screw off. Here on the Gladius, it's just this little bit that screws off that gives you access to the speaker and the SD card and all of that kind of thing right here. Just like that. So the entire saber is extremely solid. I mean, it literally is solid. It's one piece. Whereas even this is mostly one piece, but we've got the things that the doodads on the bottom, the pommels and stuff like that to screw off. Of course, MHS stuff has stuff that screws off from both sides. So if anybody's been bashing these things around, they'll notice that they'll start to rattle, and you got to tighten them up again. And that's something that doesn't happen with Saber Forge hilts, because most of them, I believe all of them, are all just one piece, except for some. Oh.
We're actually working towards moving our parts for modularity. So in the future, our parts will be modular, but in the same respect, though, we make sure that if we build it, it's locked down. It's not going to go anywhere. That being said, good, very good points. We love the feedback on what you like and what you don't like. The Gladius, a lot of our hilts are one piece design. It's something I actually like about them as well. This thing, I wear my V3 Gladius everywhere I go, And I've had this thing pop off my belt and go just flying on asphalt and concrete and horrible, terrible surfaces. And I picked it up, dusted it off, pulled the kill key, turned it on to make sure it still works, and it still goes. Which is actually another, I think, a good segue for hilt design is you want something that's going to be solid and rugged and durable. You know, we cover our sabers for dueling and things that go on with dueling. But I mean, I have dropped my saber before, and it's been fine. You know, it's been okay. I don't recommend it. If you have a new saber, I always say go by the 2-week rule. I take 2 weeks to get familiarized with the saber hilt before I start doing crazy stuff with it. So when I practice with it, I practice over grassy surfaces. I practice over soft, you know, forgiving surfaces, so that whenever I'm doing stuff like this and the saber goes flying and I have to do push-ups, it's not going to jack up my saber. Because you can, no matter how solid the design is, there's still electronics in there, there's still switches, there's still kill keys and stuff. You can break your saber if you mistreat it by throwing it on the ground.
I want to go over here to finish up with Kyle here real quick, but I want to mention that they're tough, right? But there's only so much that they can take, right? And it really doesn't matter, you know, what you're using. But you know, there you go. So why don't we move over to Kyle here? Do you have any final thoughts or anything like that as people are looking for sabers, stuff that you've seen? You think that's important that we should look at, especially as far as the durability things go, because as far as safety goes, durability is an issue. We don't want things breaking on us.
Yeah, well, you know, like you said, no matter what, if you put it through enough punishment, anything will break. Though I did watch your test on the Padawan saber, and you beat the
yes.
out of that thing. But honestly, you know what? And I took that as an example for the fact that you don't have to limit yourself necessarily. If you want to have a top of the line saber install, you want to have all the bells and whistles. You know, you like a lot of blinkies. You like to have a lot of sound fonts, a lot of options like that. You can put a high-end card in it. You know, you can put in a crystal focus. You can put in an igniter. You can put in something like that. You do not need to be worried about that saber necessarily, as long as you're making sure you secure your internals properly. That's why, you know, we've all been working towards these 3D printed chassis, things like that keep these boards nice and solid in the hilt. You know, they're not bouncing around. These boards aren't going to short out against the aluminum of the hilt. You know, and making things more modular, where it's more or less multiple pieces that fit together. You know, you have your speaker module, you have your main board module, you have your LED module, and if you're designing them properly, you can more or less lock them together that they're not going to move, they're not going to go anywhere. So like Dan said, you can drop a Gladius while you're going 90 in your motorcycle, and it very well might be working still when you pick it back up. But a lot of that is it comes from time, practice, and mistakes. You know, yeah. Everyone learns from their mistakes. Whether it's dueling, whether it's building sabers, it doesn't matter. It's always about learning from what you did wrong in the past. I'm no different than anybody else. I've done it. Yeah. That's why I have a warranty.
You're right, and that's the thing. Get a saber that will allow you to make mistakes, right? That you can do that. As we finish up here, it looks like we're out of time here. I want to just put in one little thing here for you guys, for you sabersmiths here. We can talk about here. Kill keys. I would love to see a kill switch, just something, you know, like that, because kill keys get lost, and I find them quite annoying. Anyway, so we will leave it there. Anyway, you got an answer for that there, Kyle?
Actually, I just did 2 U.S. Initiate hilts that have kill switches inside of them instead of kill keys.
Nice.
Because they were for little kids playing with them, and they were a removable battery solution as well. So there's a small toggle switch mounted to the inside of the battery pack, so that when they need to turn them on and off, they just pull the pommel off, flip that switch, and it goes live. And there's nothing outside to have to worry about bumping or have to worry about losing a kill key. I know I made a saber for my own daughter recently, and I have a feeling I'm going to have to keep a bag full of kill keys because I know they're going to go missing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I lose. I don't even buy watches. I lose them so often. So, anyway, okay. Well, that brings us to the end of another hour here. Obviously, more stuff that we can talk about in the future. Sorry we didn't get too much to you guys, Gary and Eric there, but we'll definitely have you on again here, Kyle, if you'll come on, because it was a great discussion. I think we got a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Great to have you. So, from everybody here at Terra Prime, have a great weekend. May the Force be with you, and happy sabering.